Erasmus schemes started in 1987, but like so many things, it's sort of gone through iterations, and it's in sort of 2014 onwards it became what's called Erasmus Plus. So it's no longer purely about student exchange for university undergraduates. It does that, that's the big part of what it does, is, and still does for the EU 27, is facilitate that cross-border movement. And one of the reasons why that matters so much is because it's transformational for the life chances of those young people. There's so much evidence now of, and particularly people who come from sort of poorer socio-economic backgrounds, it really, really opens up worlds. And it can actually be quite a short period of time spent working or studying in a different country that can provide that benefit to young people and make them more attractive to employment, but it actually gives them a different perspective and experiences and a level of independence and problem solving and all the things that go with moving country and having your eyes opened. So Erasmus Plus does that for young students, but it also opened up beyond undergraduates. So it was also about apprenticeships. It was about young people being able to access work training in different countries across borders. So again, opening it up from a particular sort of cohort, if you like, broadening it out to more people. And the third thing Erasmus Plus does still, for, as I say, the EU 27, is it provides training and actually that experience to the teaching staff that are involved as well, so that they have a greater ability to interact and with their students, but also because Erasmus is an exchange program that involves universities sort of swapping with universities and funding going both ways as well. It also again facilitates that for the teaching staff involved in that. So that's what Erasmus Plus still is. Astonishingly, there isn't even a draft agreement in the background right now for the UK to be part of Erasmus Plus. So whereas, and I can go on at great length about the research programme because I've worked on it in the European Parliament, and it's now called Horizon Europe, the 7-year research programme, that there was a deal done around the UK still being able to access Horizon Europe through the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. They didn't even go that far with Erasmus Plus, and the research deal is in abeyance, waiting for the Northern Ireland Protocol, but there's still nothing on Erasmus Plus, and it kind of says an awful lot about, first of all, I think the mindset of the British side of the negotiations, because we were net beneficiaries of the research programme by a big way. And you can tell that actually from Oxford and Cambridge have gone down from getting hundreds of millions into research, those two universities from the research programme, to literally 2 billion. So that's over the last 2 years, that's what they've got. So it's cut a hole, and that's just those 2 universities. And so the impact on the research universities as a whole has been huge. Anyway, but we were net beneficiaries, and now we are we're massively out of that. But they didn't see the benefit of our young people having that experience, which is why they didn't put the effort into having that agreement in principle over still being part of Erasmus Plus. So it's infuriating, and it's still something that is a sort of itch on both sides of the channel for people who are still engaged around Brexit. And I'll give you an example of that, or 2 examples, 2 very recent examples. The UK-EU Parliamentary Assembly, which is where my former MEP colleagues and the British parliamentarians, this is the joint committee that goes alongside the parliamentary committee that sits alongside it. Every trade deal has a kind of parliamentary committee with both sides of the trade deal. Erasmus Plus was clearly part of the conversation of this parliamentary assembly, and in fact there was unanimous agreement, and they met in January I think it was, unanimous agreement that there should be a youth mobility programme that operated for that, and that again that was a big part of obviously Erasmus Plus was the facilitation of mobility. So that's interesting, but there's also something called the Economic and Social Committee, ECOSOC, which is, or the EESC, sorry, which is we used to have this in this country. It's a tripartite body. It feeds into the EU institutions. It is made up of representatives of business, of trade unions, and of civil society. And it has a formal role in the legislative process in the EU. So they do reports that get fed into a legislation, they do reports on wider issues. And the EESC have a kind of, well now it's called TCA, but they basically have a Brexit-focused strand of work and a committee that's involved in that. And they came over to do an investigation, and one of their recommendations was that that there was, actually one of the things they said was that this is what came to them. First of all, that there was still a huge desire and enthusiasm on the part of civil society in the UK to engage across Europe with European institutions, which is true. My charity was sort of vicariously involved in the hearing, well, we went to Europe that hearing. But also, that again, it was about, they talked about Erasmus Plus as well, and the desire to get an agreement for Erasmus Plus to be visited. So this, although there isn't a deal in abeyance, although there's nothing waiting on paper to be brought into force, it's still a really live issue. Because we aren't part of Erasmus Plus, the government recognised this was a hole, so they created their own scheme. It's called the Turing Scheme. Alan Turing was a phenomenal man and a heroic man who had a tragic ending. That's aside, wonderful, wonderful person. I feel it's a little bit insulting to name this programme after him because it is a shadow of what happened with Erasmus Plus. Because, first of all, everything at an EU budget level works on 7-year cycles. It's predictable. Universities know when they're signing up, they get a kind of 7-year deal. That's not happening with Turing. It's year by year. The students that are engaged in this put in their applications because they know, for example, their placement year, they'll need to start in September at the place they're going to. But it is a regular experience right now that those students don't know if they've got funding or not till October. So they've got to take up their placement. Meanwhile, they are told by their host by their university, the UK university, they're told that the government will not pay their maintenance grant. They'll get a reduced maintenance grant, probably higher expenses. And if they get the Turing grant, then actually they get it is a big grant in terms of maintenance. But if they don't get it, they're still committed, and they've actually probably already moved by the time they know whether or not they're going to have the funding. It's supposed to target students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, but how can you have that level of financial uncertainty when you've got no, Bank of Mum and Dad isn't a thing, when you've not got any of that facility available. So there, like I say, there's some areas of it that are reasonably generous, but once again, it's in the execution that this has gone horribly, horribly wrong in the UK, and that is not an unfamiliar situation for people right now who are interacting with all parts of the British state. So we are worse off, our young people are worse off, but it also kind of speaks to the future, and our young people will want to, I think, see us being back in to Erasmus Plus. And those are closer and closer relationships as well. So I think the fact it's still a live conversation, the fact it's still being talked about, and that we now need to turn from looking backwards to looking forwards and what we can become part of again in the future. That's what we should take away, is that cause for hope, and not bemoan what we've lost. We need to start building towards what we could have again.